hydrogen fuel is gaining significant traction with truckers. With Nikola's hydrogen fuel cell electric semi-truck now on the market, many operators and small businesses are now getting the chance to experience this vehicle firsthand in a real-life environment. And most of these operators are saying that hydrogen allows them to drive further, faster, even though the cost of the technology is currently still very high. Especially in the United States, many companies like the names of Biagi Bros and IMC are expected to take delivery of their hydrogen fuel cell truck from Nikola over the next few months before the end of the year. This is particularly important given the fact that starting January 1st, ports like LA are not going to allow any new trucks that are powered by diesel that are essentially non-zero emissions. This means that operators and government businesses are actually being forced to overhaul their fleets instead of having an option with these electric semi-trucks. Love it or hate it, and the opportunity for these kinds of markets are pretty huge given just how massive the trucking sector is in the United States, even though yes, right now momentum is still very slow. Now, the debate around hydrogen has been going on for a very long time. Those who are relatively naive and unfamiliar with the energy landscape call the fuel an essential bailout for the oil industry as a de facto fossil fuel that is being portrayed as something that is clean and green. Now, given the fact that essentially a quarter of all global emissions actually occur from electricity generation and the rest 75% of energy pollution actually occurs from steel processing, manufacturing of fertilizers, as well as different manufacturing for glass, as well as composite materials. This means that although batteries can help us solve a certain section of this electrification issue, they are really not an energy storage or a long-term fuel source for the global decarbonization race. Point being that hydrogen can become an industrial fuel and hence get carried over into potentially the transportation sector. And that right there is exactly what has slowed down the adoption of hydrogen compared to the likes of something like battery electric solutions. Because to really get hydrogen to be cost effective and be scaled up to the right quantities, you need collaboration from big industry experts like your Shells, your BPs, and your actual auto OEMs. And as it turns out, that is a slow process because it is very capital intensive to build gas stations from the ground up, as well as manufacturing fuel cell technology at a large scale when right now the costs for production are still very high. Where the adoption of battery electric semi-trucks is being hindered by public funding for building the right amount of charging stations as well as buying them in bulk, the adoption of hydrogen is being slowed down mostly by back-end production as well as supply challenges because the demand for the technology right now is simply not that high. And when I say demand, I mean particularly from the transportation electrification sector, not any other industry that uses hydrogen as a feedstock, because global demand for this fuel in and of itself is still growing at more than 20% every single year. And the biggest customers of hydrogen right now are these big factories and facilities, as well as oil and gas companies that use it to make and process natural gas, methane, and other fuels or synthetic fuels that often are used by so many cities and businesses in metropolitan regions. The fact of the matter is that we're in a beta testing phase for both of these technologies, and it would be rather unfair to rule out hydrogen simply because the cost on paper is high. Because let's be honest, the cost of every technology is high when it is at an early stage, and it's going to be economies of scale that drive down capital expenditure and bring down the cost to consumers. We're getting better and better data every month or so as new customers are getting access to these hydrogen trucks that show that they are easier to refuel if you have given the right infrastructure and the right hydrogen supply system, and much easier to operate because they tend to be a little bit lighter and can give you a much more range, meaning you don't have to return to depot and worry about anxiety for your drivers. New hydrogen stations are expected to commission and come online over the next few years, particularly in California, which should only help further demand for applications where customers don't want to buy the hydrogen directly from the OEM or a specific supplier, and instead just want to go to a public gas station. And with the more than $7 billion funding announced for regional clean hydrogen hubs across America, there is a high likelihood costs are going to start to fall going into 2030, which will only help spur adoption of this very nascent technology, not only for semi-trucks, but as well as long-duration storage, buses, aviation, as well as shipping. But as usual, folks, that is just my take on the situation. Let me know your thoughts on this hydrogen adoption story down in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.